I spend a lot of my free time developing stuff. I find it fun to make projects, I find it fun to make little sites and scripts and everything else. And I realized during this week that I don't really have a good um, area to see all of them, or even just have a look at the more interesting ones. Sure, you could go to my GitHub and have a look around, but it's not great, right? As a full-on site is. So that is what this is. This is my portfolio site. And its design is, as it says right here, is designed after popular apps. I've made watch faces that have the same level of design as based on VS Code and PowerPoint, and I thought that it is in some ways sort of my style to be able to replicate them and make them look decent. And so I decided, partly because it would be nice and straightforward, but also because, not straightforward, there's a lot of work involved, but mainly because it would be interesting and fun to do so. And so my site is based on different applications. This is just like my clockface.json watchface, where it's sort of based on VS Code and a JSON file inside of VS Code. I intend to, at some point, make this function with other um, data storage scripts like JSON or YAML or something like that. But so for the time being, it works. It works fine. It works fine. It is. I quite like JSON, so I'm kind of happy where it is. There's two kind of primary, or three kind of, no, two primary ways to navigate here. I'm using my scroll wheel as I tied everything to my scroll wheel, but everything also works for be clicked. And there are these helpful navigation buttons at the bottom because it's relatively it's tying together five different applications that look the same, that fulfill the same function as a portfolio site. So there's a little bit there to it. So site, or I guess copied app 2 is obviously PowerPoint. As you can see, the PowerPoint watch face is right here on my first slide. And you can see the VS Code one is here. So you can see, inspiration for the first two applications are right here, middle and right. Well, it works just like PowerPoint. I scroll down, or in this case, I'll scroll back up, which would be the reverse of it, and is animated as if it was sliding. When I initially made the PowerPoint watch face, I really wanted to do a star wipe because I just thought that'd be really funny. And it's possible to do it on the Fitbit ecosystem, but with their SVG spec, it would be difficult, and even ignoring that, it just wouldn't be as usable. A nice happy swipe in and out is quite easy, it's quite efficient, and it's quite nice and readable to the user. While something more complicated like a star wipe would be great for me, not so great, generally speaking. The next application is Excel because well, it's Excel. Excel is something a lot of people have used. I've used a ton of it, and it makes sense to go and copy it. So while the first page, the VS Code shows personal details and PowerPoint shows my watch faces that I've made, this page is dedicated to all of my projects and all of the interesting projects I'd like to showcase. So for example, this is my GitHub Desktop, my project, where what it does is using Python and GitHub Actions, it accesses the GitHub API, pulls in my data, or well, anyone's data if you're using it, and builds a nice happy little image like this one, and you can display it on your profile. If you go to my GitHub profile, you'll see it on my profile. Each of my projects, they have a title, some descriptions, and a image. And if they have a GitHub link, which they all do, you can click it here and it'll bring you there. Or if they have a hosted site component, it'll do the same. Not all of them do, not all of them are sites, but most of them are, so it's not too bad. And you can scroll through them all relatively easily. You have the Twitter clone, you have some of the watch faces just because I thought it would be nice to actually talk about them in some degree. This one is my most popular face, which has over 300 plus reviews. You don't get install stats, which is very unfortunate on Fitbit's ecosystem, but I get reviews, so I can use that to base it off of. You have a Samaritan website, which is based off of person of interest and accesses the ChatGPT API for some interesting stuff. You have my Stacker clone. You have a website to check if a shark dies in a movie, mostly because that'd be fun to make. And you have a few other projects, including my final year project in college, Steamed Hams, which runs on my watch, and prescriptive analytics, the code I wrote while I was teaching or lecturing. Sorry. One of my favorite pages is this delightful page here. It is styled after Premiere Pro, Adobe's video editing software, and it is again one of the most over-engineered things I've had to ever put together, because it's original. It works.
Well, Seymour, I made it, despite your directions.
Superintendent Chalmers, welcome. I hope you're prepared.
My own sanity. It's quite nice. It's connected to my YouTube account, so it pulls in videos. Alright, I tell it which videos to pull in, but it pulls in videos. These two bars are not just for show. They will seek through the video in question. And while not all of the UI is functional, these do nothing. For example, I try to make the important parts work. So I can grab this and seek through it as well. I can click any of these videos and change it to playing off of those, and then seek through that nicely and easily. All the buttons are functional in some fashion. And it's, in my own opinion, pretty neat. You know, it's Premiere Pro. I don't really know what to add to it, really. It's just designed to look exactly like it. This little seek bar up here was horrifically painful, because it has to be absolute to sit above everything and move across. But it's fine. And finally, the last page is designed to look like Gmail. And what's funny about it is that it pulls all this data from the GitHub API. You know, my lightweight GitHub stats code accesses the GitHub API and pulls in all your data privately, uses your API key, and does everything else with it. This one doesn't. This one pulls in all of the public information from your GitHub profile, or I guess from my GitHub profile. So it's iastic to pull in all of my repos, and it does just that. It pulls in all the information, it pulls in the name, it pulls in the description I've set in GitHub, what kind of language it's programmed in, how many stars a repo has, should it have stars, which is only a few of them, and, you know, data information and links and everything else. So it's not too bad. And yeah, obviously it's one of my college projects. You can see it was made in 2018 and that's updated in 2022. Realistically speaking, that was probably the description, but that could be anything. And yeah, across the board, it's just Gmail, but you know, it's Gmail, but it shows all your data and just replicates the look of it. A lot of it's obviously not functional. These sidebars don't do anything for the time being, and realistically won't, because the point isn't that it's a fully functioning email clone just by GitHub, just that it borrows the design and functions where it needs to. But otherwise, that is my portfolio website, and this is a very long video about running through it. But either way, I hope that if anybody ever actually watches it, that you enjoy the website. It is hosted. I'll keep a link for it somewhere. And yeah, I just think it's neat. Site.json specifically kind of mentions the things like that. You know, it tells you what stack it's built in, React and Tailwind, which I don't think I actually said. A little bit about why, and specifically the quote page inspirations, because that is what I'm saying. You know, VS Code, PowerPoint, Excel, Premiere Pro, and Gmail. In inspired by.